Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Finally getting my cards up for last week's Color Throwdown Challenge. I am feeling better. My last video I said I had a really horrible chest cold because everyone got sick, and of course I caught it too. I sound awful, but I feel okay. So yeah, my voice is just taking its time getting back to normal. But I wanted to get these done because, you know, Halloween is coming and I still have a ton of videos to share with you guys. So, I'm starting off with some YUPO paper. This is not actually paper, it's basically plastic. And most of the time we use it for like alcohol inks and whatnot. But what I really like using it for as well is like stencils, because it is a YUPO paper. So you can wipe these off and reuse them over and over again. And that's what I wanted to do here, because I wanted to do more than one card with this ink blending. Normally I would just die cut a circle from some masking paper, etc. and do my ink blending and I'm good to go. However, when you use masking paper for something like this, when you peel it off, it is almost impossible to like lay it out again onto another card front, anything, you know, because it's curled up or it tears or whatever. So something like YUPO paper, or you could use acetate, anything like that, is just kind of nice because I get to use it over and over again. Plus, when I'm done with this, I'm just going to save this in my little storage with the circle dies, because next time I need, you know, a circle mask like this, I've already got them cut out. So I die cut the circle using one of Simon's nested circle dies. And then I'm just blending on 3 different colors of Distress Oxide inks onto some white cardstock. And blending pretty heavily and just like blending them into each other. And like I said, this is for the Color Throwdown Challenge. And I wanted to use 3 of the 4 colors for my background, and then I'll pull in the lighter purple a little bit later. So after I did my blending, I just took a baby wipe and wiped off this YUPO paper. It's stained. That's going to happen. That's just a given. But again, I can either, you know, I could pour alcohol inks over this and they would cover it right up. You just have like the circle piece missing. Or I can just, like what I plan on doing is just reusing it down the road. Next time I want, you know, a spotlight, stencil, image, whatever, I can just reuse this. So I just wiped it off. And then once these blend-in inks were dry on the cardstock, I die cut all of these pieces with one of the My Favorite Things A2 rectangle STAX set 1 Die-Namics. Say that 3 times fast. And then I splattered on some black because, of course, I'm using black soot distress paint and my splat box just to keep this from getting everywhere. Especially though with distress paint, because it is permanent. I say this every time, but I'll always say this just in case. This paint is permanent when it dries. So you always want to wash off your brush, etc. immediately after using it, because it's permanent. So once I'm done my splattering, I wash out my brush, I wipe off my acrylic block, it's good to go. So added some black splatter to all these little backgrounds, and then set all of those aside to dry. And while those are drying, I'm going to stamp images from the My Favorite Things Spooktacular Friends stamp set. The set is so cute. So cute. These are all designed by Stacy Yakula, and she's got a whole bunch of sets with them. But today, I decided not to color these images. I know some people are going to be horrified by this, but sometimes I just really like the images themselves, like the line detail and everything, and I just don't want to color. I just wasn't in the mood. So I stamped all of these onto the same white cardstock with just VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. Stamping really well, just to really get that detail. I wanted them crisp and black and perfect. And ended up having to move that magnet out of the way because, of course, it got just in the way there. So that's the beauty, though, of having the Misty, is I can just re-stamp that little spot and they're good to go. So stamped all those. I'm going to die cut them with their coordinating wafer dies. I didn't end up using the little haunted house image in the set, so I just set that aside. But I did stamp that little pumpkin image a couple more times because I thought that'd be cute for each card because they're just adorable. So I have everything stamped, everything's die cut. And then I also die cut the word happy using the Cause for Celebration Die-Namics. These came out ages ago. I'll have links to everything as always. But I just wanted the word happy to kind of end at like Happy Halloween. So I die cut that from the light purple cardstock a whole bunch of times. And then I am stacking these all together just using some Gina K Connect glue. And each one is going to be 3 layers of die cuts just to give it that depth that I really like in dimension with die cut words. So I stack all those together. And then I also pulled in more of that Seedless Preserves Distress Oxide ink and just really lightly inked up, just kind of like the bottom portion of all these die cut words. Just to, 1, give it that little extra bit of depth, and 2, to kind of pull in that darker purple, because this lighter purple with just the card design was kind of like standing out like a sore thumb. So added that little bit of blending, wiped off my glass media mat because there's purple ink on it, and if I don't wipe it off immediately, I'm going to get it everywhere. So did that, and then I just grabbed a scrap of black cardstock to stamp the Happy Halloween sentiment from that same Spooktacular Friends stamp set. So I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool and then stamp this 3 times with Simon's clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to heat emboss these with some detail white embossing powder. So pour that over the sentiments, tap off the excess, melt these with my heat tool. Once they're all melted, I used the My Favorite Things Skinny Strips Die-Namics, also ancient. I've had these forever. They were like the perfect size though for these sentiments. So I pulled those out and used that to die cut these sentiments. And then I also pulled out my black and white stripes pattern paper that I have extras of course, that I haven't used in a while. I was so obsessed with these papers, and then just haven't used them. And now that I've pulled it out, I won't be surprised if I use them on every single card for the foreseeable future. But anywho, I die cut those, the pattern papers, I die cut with one of the essential fishtail sentiment strips just because it was a little bit wider. And after I've got everything die cut, stamped, etc., now I can just start assembling all of these cards. So I had a rough idea in my head of how I wanted to assemble everything and whatnot. So I just started with the first card because it was one of those things where it was like, is this actually going to turn out what is, in my head? So I just started adhering everything. And I actually pulled out my little Tim Holtz tiny attacher mini stapler. Same thing. I haven't used this on a card in forever. Funny enough, I actually use it all the time though with like my office papers and whatnot, like my important papers that I need to keep, etc. I always use this over a regular stapler because this works so much better. My normal stapler, half the time, doesn't actually staple through anything. It's so annoying. So I just use this tiny attacher for everything, but not as often on cards. But I added it this time just to give it that little extra something. And then once I've got everything adhered, I'm going to add a few Studio Caudia crystals just to kind of tie it all together, plus to cover up a couple of little smears I made, because that's what they're good for. Embellishments cover up any oops. So I've got June crystals and May crystals here. And I just kind of sprinkled them on my card front and adhered them into place with that same Connect glue and just picking them up with my jewel picker. So once I've got the crystals adhered, I want to finish the inside of the card before I adhere everything to the outside. So for the inside of the card, I had die cut more of that black and white pattern paper. I'd also stamped more sentiments from that Spooktacular Friends stamp set. I stamped onto that light purple cardstock and then die cut them with one of the Skinny Strips wafer dies. And then on the inside of each card, I stamped the same character that's going to be on the outside. So I stamped it with that VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink, and then stamped the pumpkins with the orange, like the carved pumpkin Distress Oxide ink, just because. And then adhered the striped pattern paper, adhered the sentiment strip, and then I would just flip over my card bases and trim off the excess with scissors. And then for the front of the card, I die cut some green cardstock with another one of the A2 rectangle STAX wafer dies. This one was from set 2, I think. I have both sets so that I have basically like every size. So die cut the green cardstock, adhered that on an angle, and then adhered the main kind of card panel on an angle as well, which for me is always like a struggle. I always want to line everything up, straight and perfect. Putting things on an angle, I literally have to mentally make myself do it. So adhered that. Once I was happy with the first card, I can then go on and finish the second and third cards with all the elements that are already, colored, die cut, etc. So these all kind of came together quite quickly after finishing the first one. So one's got the little mouse, one has the bunny, one's got the owl, and then the inside of all three has the same little character, just to tie them all together. So adhered all my little crystals and whatnot to finish off these cards, and that completed all 3 of these fun little cards. So as always, I'll have a link below the video to my blog post. I will link to the color throwdown challenge in my blog post as well if you want to check that out and play along. And then I'll have a supply list with links to everything I used and showed in the video. So you can check that out below if you are interested. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing, thumbs upping, and commenting. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!